Well, thank you for joining us today on this final work day, Friday, here this week. And today I'd like to go to the book of First John. First John was written probably around AD 85, one of the last few books written by the Apostle John and any other writer. And so they are very applicable to us in our day because as the day was developing there when John was still alive, we have a number of the things that he faced that we face today. Some of the same philosophy, some of the same pressures, some of the problems within the church. And so it's very helpful to read the Johannine epistles and, of course, the Gospel of John, which is such a blessing. But let me give you a very familiar verse. I'm not going to read all the verses before it. You know them about love not the world. But then we read in verse 17, "And the world passeth away, and the lust thereof, but he that doeth the will of God abideth forever." In 2 Corinthians chapter 4, we are not to look upon the things that are temporal. We are to look upon the things that are eternal. And Christians really fall into this trap. We look at the success of people that are not living for God. We look at the ways that are of culture and what's happening with the values of people, and they seem to get away with it. And it sometimes we can get frustrated in what we have to go through. But this verse makes it very clear that all of this is temporal. And we know that. We would tell other people that, but we need to be reminded at times that there's no reason to live for that which is not going to last. What we must focus on is that which will last for eternity. And he says here, the world passeth away. You know, just even you go back 50 years, most of the people that had the influence back then, this generation doesn't even know their names. So what? They're gone. Their houses are probably gone. Their companies are gone. Nations have changed. Situations have changed. That happens even here on this earth. But when it comes to eternity, this entire world, this entire age is going to pass away, and all that seems to be so big and so powerful is going to evaporate. In fact, eventually, we will have a new heavens and a new earth. That's really thrilling. People say, what's heaven going to be like? I don't know, but our earth is still a beautiful earth, even with it being cursed. And there's so much here. Can you imagine a perfect earth that God creates for us in our glorified state? It's just hard to even understand. And to think of the fact that the only thing that's going to matter then is what we did through the power of God to accomplish his will. That's what will last for eternity. And so the world passeth away, and all the lusts thereof, all the desires. Thankfully, in heaven, we won't have wrong desires. But all of that will pass away. But he that doeth the will of God abideth forever. Friends, we know these truths. You know this verse. We know we're not to love the world. And yet we still are very much overwhelmed by living for the here and now, being affected by the here and now. I would encourage you this weekend to meditate on how much do I do that will last for eternity? How much am I involved in that is the will of God? How much of it's just living stuff, doing things, making ends meet, working things out? How much of it is genuine prayer, walking with God, ministering to people, living for things that really matter? Those are the kind of questions that every believer needs to get a hold of. And I tell you what, when you answer those questions honestly and align yourself in the will of God, that's when encouragement comes. That's when freedom and liberty comes, and the joy of the Lord is there. So the best thing I can do as we finish out this week is to just encourage all of us to ask ourselves, how much are we in the will of God? How much of our life is really going to matter a million years from now? And if we'll let God get a hold of our heart, we'll get on track with what really counts. And I promise you, you will really get encouraged to be in the will of God.